Reviewing today Tintin in America. Now, the previous book in the Tintin series that I reviewed was the first book, Tintin in the Land of the Soviets. And you can see here, this is the second book in the series, Tintin in America, except if we go over here to the Wikipedia list, you can see it's really the third. There's a second book in between, Tintin in the Congo, but Tintin in the Congo is not available, at least not in English. According to Wikipedia, it's no longer being published in English because Tintin in the Congo promoted racism and promoted colonialism and promoted big game hunting, all of which are out of fashion nowadays. Although I will say it is available online. If you search Tintin in the Congo read online on Google or something, you'll find several sites, probably none of them legal, but you can find it online. I had a brief skim of it online. I didn't read it thoroughly because the whole point, to me, the whole point of this book review project is to read physical books. I read enough stuff online. So I didn't read it. I will say maybe that in my opinion, I think it's a shame it's not being published anymore. I'm not in favor of censoring books. I know this is going to be a huge, long, complex issue about when to censor and who is doing the censoring, because I think it's the publisher's decision to withdraw it from circulation, and cancel culture, and the fact that these books are made for children is another wrinkle. I don't know. It's a big, long discussion. I don't want to get too sidetracked by it because the subject of this review is Tintin in America. So I'm going to focus on Tintin in America. Other than to say that, if you read the Wikipedia summary of Tintin in the Congo, Tintin has a lot of adventures in the Congo, and he breaks up a diamond smuggling ring. According to the Wikipedia summary, at the end of the book, he finds out that the diamond smuggling ring has been organized by Al Capone, or somebody whose initials are the same as Al Capone. I don't actually remember. Anyways, this book picks right up from that note. Let's see, can you read this here? He's talking about Tintin. He says, he busted my diamond racket in the Congo and landed my pails in the cooler. So it's continuing on from the adventures Tintin had in the Congo, except Tintin in the Congo is no longer in publication. But I guess in the previous book, Tintin had was aware that Al Capone and his diamond smuggling racket were involved in the Congo. So now he's coming to Chicago to clean up organized crime. Now, as with my previous Tintin reviews, I'm aided here by Wikipedia. The Wikipedia entries for Tintin I find interesting. Let's go over to the computer here. Let's see if this works. I'm filming my computer through my phone screen. But I tend to judge the cultural importance of something by how long the Wikipedia article is. And I've been interested to see how long these articles are for these Tintin comics. I mean, you've got this, plot synopsis, fair enough. History, like the history of the idea, the research that the author did, the original publication, the second version, later alterations and releases, a critical analysis of the themes of it, the various adaptations. I mean, it's a quite a lot of text here, dedicated to what is really quite a very silly, very simplistic, quite forgettable comic book. I find it interesting how much critical analysis there seems to be of these Tintin series compared with really how unimpressive these stories are. Now, granted, that's the perspective of a newbie who is saying this. Also, that's the perspective of somebody who did not grow up with this series and consequently does not have any nostalgic ties to it. I understand that the series gets better and more sophisticated as it goes on, so maybe that will account for the critical attention that it gets from certain quarters. But at the moment, I just do not get it. I mean, I do not get what the big deal about Tintin is just from the stories I've been reading. Again, supposedly it gets better. So, as I noted in my review of Tintin in the Land of the Soviets, and as I'm getting from Wikipedia, at this point in publication, the author, whose name is Hergé, I'm not sure how that's pronounced, is working for a far-right Catholic newspaper in Belgium. Wikipedia characterizes it as fascists. And again, this is the 1930s here. So we've already done one Tintin adventure about the evils of communism. We did a second Tintin adventure promoting the Belgian colonial experiment in the Congo. And then the third one in America. Now, according to Wikipedia, the far-right Belgian newspaper, and I guess maybe the far-right in Belgium, maybe in general, was suspicious of America, or not, did not view America sympathetically. They viewed it, the American kind of hyper-capitalism and the American cultural juggernaut as a threat to traditional Belgian Catholic values. So the editor of the newspaper, according to Wikipedia, had an ideological axe to grind against America, which is perhaps why Chicago is portrayed as a land of gangsters and corruption. Although, I don't know, it's difficult to know how... Wikipedia makes a big deal about this, but it's difficult to know how much of a deal to make about this because the American media was also portraying Chicago at the same time, right? Like, this was the heyday of gangster films, where the American media was also portraying Chicago as the land of big crime and corruption and stuff like that. But anyways, similar to the previous Tintin book I read, the plot, there's not much of a plot. It's just one kind of wacky escapade after another with, not much of a coherent plot, just Tintin escaping from one danger after another, and as soon as he captures some crooks, then new crooks just pop up, and it's just very random. There is some improvements on the previous book I've read. It seems to be getting a little better, but not by much. So there's a whole bunch of gangster stuff here. And then they go out to the Wild West where they encounter the Indians. Now, again, according to Wikipedia, the author Hergé was sympathetic to the plight of the American Indians. The Wikipedia notes, and I think they note correctly, that although the Indians are portrayed broadly sympathetically, they're also portrayed as simple and childlike. But what are you going to do? It's the 1930s. There were, yeah, there is an interesting little bit here. This is the sharpest political point I think in the whole comic so far. Tintin discovers oil while he's on the Indian reservation. And as soon as he discovers oil on the Indian reservation, immediately he's swarmed by American businessman. Tintin says, "How did you know there was an oil well here? It's less than 10 minutes since it blew." "Know-how, sonny boy. Unerring American know-how. Never fails." So then he's swarmed by all these businessmen who are offering him $10,000, 25 grand, 50 G's, 100. And Tintin says, "I'm terribly sorry, gentlemen, but that oil well isn't mine to sell. It belongs to the Blackfoot Indians who live in this part of the country." "Why didn't you say that before?" So then they go to the Indians. "Here, Hiawatha, $25 and half an hour to pack your bag and quit your territory." Has Paleface gone mad? And then look at the very next panel here. An hour later. So that is, I mean, it's over the top, obviously, cartoonish like the whole series is, but you do not miss the point. Indians are cleared from their land, and then here probably comes the traditional old European critique of hyper-American capitalism, where all of a sudden a town is built right overnight. But then, yeah, then it's right back to the cartoonish chase stuff. There was one joke I thought was something else which I quite liked. Here, Tintin is caught by a lynch mob. They think he's a criminal. He's not really. So they got him strung up. They're giving him the heave-ho. The rope breaks. And then all the other cowboys are laughing at him. And he says, "Go on, laugh. It could happen to anybody." So, I don't know. I thought that was funny. Just the idea. Not so much funny that the rope breaks, but just so much funny that the cowboy is embarrassed that the rope is breaking. And he's got to explain that it's not his fault. It could have happened to anybody. So, there are a few moments here which I thought were okay. So signs that the series is getting a bit better, a bit funnier than before. Hopefully the series will continue to get better because on the whole, yeah. Oh, I guess this part was kind of funny as well. Tintin's dog gets kidnapped. So they send the hotel detective over. Hotel detective thinks he's Sherlock Holmes. You know, the kidnapper has a slight limp with the right foot, cut himself trimming a corn the day before yesterday. And one more detail. Snores in his sleep. When I tell you, sir, his grandfather was scalped by the Sioux 40 years ago, and he has a profound dislike for bird nest soup. You know everything I spotted from a quick look around. But of course he's a complete fraud. Has no idea how to do detective work. So, okay, that was kind of funny. So there were moments in here, but on the whole, it's a lot of the same problems that I made in my previous review, Tintin in the Land of the Soviets, where it's just no coherent plot, just a lot of silly stuff, cartoonish stuff that beats me how this could attract so much critical attention and be deemed worthy of these long write-ups on Wikipedia. But there you go. Presumably this series does get better as you keep reading it. Yeah, actually, another thing I learned from Wikipedia is I'll try and remember to link to the Wikipedia article in the description below so you can read the Wikipedia article yourself. But the series was revised many times, even within the life of Hergé, the author. So various things were taken out or added in. I think this panel right here actually is the panel they give as an example on Wikipedia. Something that got changed. I think it said sign for redskin or something like that up here, and it was revised. And the name of the Indian tribe was changed to make it a little bit less ridiculous, apparently. And these were all changes that took place within the life of the author. Like, I think it was originally published in 1930, revised in 1945, revised again in the 1970s. Although not all of those changes were progressive, at least according to Wikipedia. One change made in the 1970s apparently was to get rid of black people in the comics because the publishers were opposed to integration. Does that sound right? That's what the Wikipedia article said. In the 1970s. Well, who knows? Maybe it was a Southern publisher at the time. I don't know. But the point being, I guess, all these changes being made to reflect the changing attitudes of the time, meaning that cancel culture is not something that is not something invented in the last 5 years by the internet. This kind of constant revising of stuff to make it palatable to the culture of the time is something that apparently was going on with these Tintin books all throughout the 20th century, constantly being revised. So, I don't know. That's something maybe easy to forget about, but important to keep in mind. I don't really have a lot more to say about this. It was another silly adventure. Wikipedia notes that apparently one critic said that these panels here were a good example of the author illustrator being able to convey the sense of vertigo with a panel illustration. I guess to a certain extent. You don't want to overpraise these things, but you do get somewhat of a sense of the height from that. Yeah, so that's Tintin in America. Book number 3 in the Tintin series, although in terms of the books currently available, book number 2 out of the books currently available.